I do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much, Ms Elsmore. Please have a seat. Yes, Mr Moss.
Thank you, sir. Just start by giving us your full name, if you would.
Catherine Elsmore.
Thank you. Can we have on the screen, please, Home Office, OHOM 40s and 78. I think you can confirm that this is your statement to the inquiry. It's dated the 25th of September.
Yes.
And are the contents of that statement true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. You tell us at the start of your statement that you are the Director of Prevent in the Homeland Security Group within the Home Office. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. Just give us a brief outline of what that role entails.
So I oversee the policy and strategy of the Prevent programme. So it's responsible for working with a wide range of other government departments and policing to ensure we've got the processes in place to spot the signs of radicalisation and to provide support to people that require it.
Thank you. As far as your own background is concerned, we don't need to go into the fine detail, but I think you've worked in the sphere of counter-terrorism within the Home Office since 2013.
Yes.
You set out, and may I deal with it briefly as a matter of fairness to you, that effectively your lengthy and helpful statement is a corporate statement. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
And where you speak to matters relating to Prevent, it's an area that you're very familiar with, largely from your own first-hand knowledge.
Yes.
But when we get into areas of online harms and some issues about the policy concerning ricin, biological and explosive weapons and matters of that kind, I think you've been reliant on assistance from colleagues in putting your statement together.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. And if at any stage you get into a position where you say that you can't assist, please just say so. And we're going to be hearing from your colleague, Mr. Hunt, tomorrow in relation to the policy in relation to knives. So I'm not going to ask you any questions in relation to that. Do you follow?
Yes.
Thank you. May we start then, please, with an overview of the government's contest strategy and the role of Prevent within it. We should start, I think, please, and may we have on screen paragraph 10 of your statement. It's at page 5. And you set out helpfully for us there that the definition of terrorism within the Terrorism Act 2000 is the use or threat of action that is designed to influence the government or an international governmental organisation or to intimidate the public or a section of the public and is for the purpose of advancing a political, religious, racial or ideological cause. Is that right?
Yes.
And the specific actions that the Act speaks to are serious violence against a person, serious damage to property, endangering a person's life, creating a serious risk to the health or safety of the public or a section of the public, an action designed seriously to interfere with or seriously to disrupt an electronic system. Is that right?
Yes.
And we'll come on to cases of unclear or unstable ideology and how that fits within that in due course. So far as AR is concerned, if we could have paragraph 13 of your statement at page 6 on the screen, please. Should we understand that relevant to AR and his activities, that the Home Secretary has effectively 3 areas of interest and responsibility. The first for the overall coordination of the counter-terrorism strategy. Yes?
Yes.
So that is contest, but within that, Prevent is part of that.
Yes, that's right.
Secondly, she has oversight of MI5, the security service.
Yes, that's right.
And thirdly, overall accountability for the activities of the police service in England and Wales, including the counter-terrorism police.
Yes.
Thank you. Dealing with the first of those, on the previous page, you gave the headlines in relation to that counter-terrorism strategy, contest, and its 4 core strands. And the chair will be familiar, but just so that we have it from you, those 4 core strands are prevent, to stop people becoming terrorists or supporting terrorism; pursue, to stop terrorist attacks happening in this country or against UK interests overseas; protect, aiming to strengthen the UK's protection against a terrorist attack; and prepare, that is to say, aiming to minimise the impact of an attack if one does happen. Yes?
Yes.
Within that, then, those 4 strands, so far as prevent is concerned, if we look at paragraph 15, we see the strategic objectives at the time. They've changed since because of the Shawcross report, as we may touch on. But at the time, the prevent strategic objectives tackle the causes of radicalisation and respond to the ideological challenge of terrorism. Just pausing there, that on its face is extremely broad. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree.
And was that part of the later changes to give that a deliberately narrower focus?
It did narrow it down to focus a bit more heavily on the ideological elements, but this objective is very much around especially the work in communities that we do to try to spot radicalisation risk across the country.
Thank you. And then B, safeguard and support those most at risk of radicalisation through early intervention, identifying them and offering support. And thirdly, enable those who have already engaged in terrorism to disengage and rehabilitate. Is that right?
Yes.
So that's the overall aim of what Prevent was trying to do.
Yes.
In pursuance of that, as you set out in paragraph 17 of your statement, the Counter-Terrorism and Security Act 2015, I think, imposed a statutory prevent duty on what in technical terms is referred to as specified authorities. Yes?
Yes.
And for our purposes, what is of note is those specified authorities included local authorities, so local councils,
Yes.
Schools, colleges, universities,
Yes.
Health bodies as well
Yes.
as obviously the police.
Yeah.
Thank you. There's also a duty which we can take quite briefly for the local authorities to have in place channel panels, yes?
Yes.
And those are effectively the panels that are set up to decide upon the interventions that are most appropriate for those who are referred into the channel process to try to give that support or disruption to those who may be at risk of being radicalised. Is that a fair summary at a high level?
Yes, that's fair.
Thank you. And again, I'm taking this fairly briefly because we've seen much of it and the detail is in your statement. But in pursuance of the prevent duty, one of the things that the Home Office, I think, published was the prevent duty guidance. Can we just have briefly on screen, please, HOM 4023? Can you just confirm for us, I don't need to go through the detail, that this 2015 version of the prevent duty guidance that which was in place at the time of AR's referrals?
Yes, it was.
And then, sir, for your note, the 2023 updated version of that is at HOM 4014.
Thank you.
Turning then to having set out the broad strategy, can I ask for your assistance on the role that the Home Office plays within that? Does the Home Office have any operational responsibility for individual referrals?
No, we do not see the referrals or have any case management responsibilities.
And so, as we've seen perhaps in our evidence so far, the operational responsibility for the individual case referrals rests in the first instance with the counter-terrorism police.
Yes, that's right.
In each appropriate region.
Yes, that's right.
What the Home Office is, however, responsible for is the broad policy, the oversight, and the overall delivery of the PREVENT programme. Would that be fair?
Yes, that's fair.
If we look at paragraph 22 of your statement, if we can pick it up at the bottom of page 8. So paragraph 22, HOM 4078. Thank you very much, Sarah. In relation to the Home Office role in providing guidance, what you say is that the PREVENT Directorate in the Home Office develops and updates statutory guidance for specified authorities, including the PREVENT duty guidance, which I've just shown on screen. But counter-terrorism police sets guidance and training for police, including issuing the Counter-Terrorism Case Officer Guide and guidance on the DIF, as we've heard it referred to as the Dynamic Investigation Framework. First of all, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Have any of the recent incidents, of which there have been several, where PREVENT has been scrutinised, given cause to reconsider that as to whether the Home Office should have a greater role in the guidance that's issued by counter-terrorism police?
Yes, so we work really closely with CT Police and have, especially over the last 2 to 3 years, to work together on the operational, not the operational delivery of PREVENT, but the policies and processes that are in place that govern that. So the policies that have been put in place over the last couple of years have been developed alongside my teams, working together with City Police headquarters and then with the regions.
Thank you. And I'm going to come on to it in due course in my questions, but you'll be aware, of course, of the joint letter that we looked at in evidence last week in the summer of 2019. Insofar as there may be a concern as to whether the lessons from that joint letter had really hit home sufficiently, would it be fair to suggest that that highlights the need for the Home Office Directorate to be less distanced from the counter-terrorism police guidance that's issued?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a balance to be drawn between police operational independence and also the role that the Home Office has in terms of that overarching ownership of policy, guidance and strategy. So yes, it's certainly a relationship that over the last few years has strengthened and got closer as we've got closer to the operational detail and the operational support that we've provided to police.
And it is the logical corollary to that before the last 2 to 3 years, you think that the Home Office perhaps was a bit too distant from the very important guidance issued by counter-terrorism police in those areas?
Yes, I think that is fair. I think part of that was I think part of it was the Home Office taking a different approach and taking a much more sort of strategic approach. I think it was also City Police wanting to ensure that that they had the operational independence that is their right and responsibility.
Thank you. I think reflecting perhaps the areas we've been looking at in relation to training at C over the page. For the Home Office, no doubt because of the counter-terrorism police's ability to deliver its own training, but the Home Office involvement in training seems to be in relation to the other specified authorities, so local authority sectors that are subject to the duty seem to be an area that the Home Office provides and supports training for, but the counter-terrorism police take care of their own training.
Yes, that's right. Police train police.
Thank you. Within this list of areas that the Home Office is responsible for, you also at 22J, again it's over the page, in terms of interventions, have a role in ensuring the quality of the provision of intervention services across Prevent. Could you just explain how that works in reality?
Yes, certainly. We maintain a register of intervention providers that will work alongside cases that are managed through either the Channel programme or the Police-Led Partnerships programme. It's our role to make sure that we identify the right quality of individuals to support those cases, to train them, and to make sure we have a broad suite of interventions available to meet the needs of those cases that are on either Channel or police-led partnerships.
Thank you. And then another area where the Home Office is directly involved, you tell us at K, is in online material. What's the essence of the Home Office's direct role there?
There we work closely with technology companies to share, we'll share threat assessments with them around how terrorists might be exploiting their platforms. We work with international partners, and we collect evidence and sort of expertise, I guess, on the way that terrorists use the internet to upskill frontline practitioners and to upskill companies to take action themselves.
Thank you. At 22M, you have statistical evaluation, and would that include looking at the breakdown of types of cases that are referred, whether Islamist or right-wing extremists and so on?
Yes, that's a statistical and analysis team, a sort of team of social researchers. They're responsible for both compiling the data that is published annually, but also working closely with us to track trends through Prevent and to help us try to get ahead of them. And
then at the top of this page at G, Ms. Elsmore, no doubt reflecting your attendance here today, your directorate is responsible for case reviews, inquests and inquiries, ensuring the integration of appropriate learning into policy.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. If we turn then to looking at how Prevent works in practice, Ms. Elsmore, much of this ground was covered last week with the relevant sergeants and indeed with the CTCO involved for AR. But just to recap on the basics, I think anybody can raise a concern into Prevent that a member of the public is at risk or there is a concern about radicalisation.
Yes, that's right.
So there are no limits at that stage.
No limits.
And that would include family members of the subject of the referral.
Absolutely. Often the best referrals that we get come from family members, unfortunately. We would like to encourage more families to refer in and friends.
Thank you. Looking at that, and if somebody has been taken on in particular in relation to Prevent or even has been referred into Prevent and it's under consideration, what's the policy in terms of encouraging family members to share concerns? Obviously, any parent is likely to be worried about the trouble that their offspring may get into, and there may be a delicate issue there about not being able to give promises about lack of criminal justice activity. How is that? How does the policy deal with that delicate balance?
Yes, we're at pains to point out that Prevent is not a punitive programme. It's there to support people away from harmful behaviours, and that reporting those concerns means that multi-agency partnership will come together to sequence activity and to try to help that person away from those types of behaviours.
Apart from discussion with family members, if it gets to the stage of an interview with the person of concern, is anything actually given to family members, whether a leaflet with contact details of who to contact, matters of that kind?
Yes, so we do hand out leaflets where we've had referrals, where we have often it's individuals that are referred into Prevent will go as part of the consent discussions and share information and hand out a leaflet at that point. Otherwise, we know that the local authority works closely with communities and with family members to promote how Prevent works and to try to tackle any sort of misconceptions.
Because one of the aspects that the inquiry will have to look at is incidents on the 22nd of July where AR, on the evidence currently available, may have been intending to go to his old school armed on the day that they broke up. And it's clear that that wasn't reported to the police or to Prevent. And I'm wondering if AR's case has caused reflection within the Home Office on whether more can be done to encourage family members to feel, even if they don't want to go to their local police station, that they can contact Prevent.
Yeah, so we do. We have thought about this long and hard. We do a range of communication and awareness raising, trying to cut through some of the myths around Prevent. But in particular, the fact that this is wider safeguarding partners that do a lot of Prevent work. But yes, we really encourage family members to, if they spot a concern, to refer in. We know from previous experience that people that have gone on to conduct terrorist attacks often give somebody, a close family member or a friend, some sort of indication that they of what they might be planning.
Thank you. You set out the detail in your statement, but I think you can just confirm for us that education providers, so the education sector, are the area that generates the most referrals into Prevent.
Yes, that's right.
And people under 20 consistently account for the most referrals into Prevent as well.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. Obviously, the referrals, as we've been looking at, are received and assessed by the counter-terrorism police, and you've explained that the Home Office doesn't have any direct operational role in that. I think subsequent to these events, or at least subsequent to AR's referrals, is this right that the Home Office has been more directly active in setting the framework against which the assessment will be judged? I think there is now a Prevent Assessment Framework, the PAF or PAF, introduced in September 24.
Yes, that's right, and that's a reflection of the greater role that we've played over the last 2 or 3 years in trying to strengthen operational practice.
Thank you. We might come back to that when we look at changes. The issue of the communication between the FIMU and Prevent officers was a matter that we explored last week. Is that something which sits within the Home Office's role to give guidance in relation to the boundaries between what the FIMU should be doing and what Prevent officers should be doing?
No, that would be a police matter.
If we can have on screen, please, paragraph 31 of your statement at page 14. You've set out there, if we could just have paragraph 31 expanded, the different stages at which there are threshold decisions to be taken within the Prevent process. And the threshold 1 is just at the early stage of notice, check and share when the referral is made. Then you have the counterterrorism intelligence assessment and deconfliction. But then at threshold 3, what I'm most interested in for the purposes of these questions is the prevent gateway assessment, yes?
Yes.
And in relation to that, and it's set out in your statement, so paragraph 42 for your note, we don't have to go to it. But the test at that stage is whether there are reasonable grounds to suspect that a person is susceptible to becoming a terrorist or supporting terrorism, yes?
Yes, that's right.
And in broad terms, as it goes towards acceptance into channel, would it be right that the test gets stricter or narrower?
Yes.
But at that stage, whether it should be referred into the channel process for information gathering, the test is a relatively low one, reasonable grounds to suspect, yes?
Yes.
Within your statement, you do set out that that low test wasn't actually set out in the prevent duty guidance or in the channel duty guidance, although you make clear that it would have been set out in counter-terrorism police's operational guidance, perhaps for obvious reasons. Is it on reflection somewhat surprising that that test wasn't set out in the Home Office guidance?
I wouldn't have expected it to have been set out in the prevent duty guidance. That was more around the types of activities that we would expect statutory partners to undertake to comply with the prevent duty. So it's aimed at education, health, and so on. Yes, on reflection, I am surprised that it's not set out in the channel duty guidance, but I recognise that it is set out in all of police guidance.
Thank you. And then as we get towards the next stages, we've seen that there would be information gathering and a decision whether to refer to channel. And I think at that stage, paragraph 46 of your statement, but we don't need to turn it up, the test becomes whether there's a reasonable belief that the person is vulnerable. So a slight tightening there from reasonable grounds for suspicion to forms of reasonable belief.
Yes, that's right.
At the time of AR's first referral, 2019, and the decision-making in relation to that right at the end of 2019, the start of 2020, are you able to help with whether, viewed globally, the percentage of cases that was being referred into the channel process, so getting beyond the prevent gateway assessment, was satisfactory and proportionate to the risk, or was it a matter of concern?
So we were concerned about the number of cases that we referred to as mixed, unclear and unstable, making it through into channel case management. That was one of the reasons why we issued the joint letter in mid-2019.
Thank you. So this was a known problem, that not enough of the mixed, unstable or unclear ideology cases were getting through the PGA.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. In addition to this, the Northwest at the time, as will be very familiar to you, was involved in the Dovetail pilot, yes?
Yes.
And the key difference, if we've understood it correctly, is that the information gathering would have been done by the local authority channel coordinator. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Rather than by the police?
Yes.
But the decision on whether to refer to channel, even under Dovetail, would that have remained with the counter-terrorism police?
Yes, it did do initially. We then changed legislation later on to enable the channel coordinator to contribute to that decision. But even then, it required the supervision and agreement of CT Police.
Thank you. Can we deal with this now? What was the purpose of the Dovetail pilot?
So the purpose was to explore how making channel a more wholly multi-agency, local authority-led process to see whether that helped to build support for Prevent, whether it encouraged increasing numbers of people to consent to channel support, and because we wanted to try to take some of the administrative burden away from CT Police to enable them to spend more time investigating cases of particular concern.
I think the pilot has now come to an end and it's not being continued, is that right?
That's right.
Why is that?
I think a range of different reasons. We were running at the time 3 different versions of channel across the country. So the regional dovetail pilot in the northwest, single site pilots in other areas, which was a single local authority rather than a collection, and then the usual police-led channel. What we wanted to do was to move it to one consistent model so that we can increase consistency through the process. We selected the police-led model because of concerns over resilience of dovetail. So if one of the channel coordinators was off sick, for instance, or got a new job, it was a challenge getting people with the right expertise to be able to fill those roles swiftly. So the police model gave us more resilience, but also it was very complicated to roll out across different local authority boundaries and different local authority constitutions. And also it was a more expensive model that, and we didn't think that there was sufficient value for money to prove that model was the most effective.
Was there also some concern about tension between local authority and counter-terrorism police under the dovetail way of doing things, such that it may have led to a disincentive to push cases through?
So we heard mainly through anecdotal reporting that there was friction in some of the dovetail sites, with a sort of nervousness from police to hand over the case management, but also a fear from local authorities that they weren't aware of what was being referred into Prevent. So that was anecdotal reporting and across the range of dovetail sites. I don't know to what extent that was felt in the northwest.
You've anticipated my next question. You've twice mentioned it was anecdotal, but you don't know whether that was a northwest issue.
No, I can't say.
But whether the area was in the dovetail pilot or not, once it is going through to the channel process and someone is taken on with channel, it's right, isn't it, that the channel process is voluntary?
Yes, that's right.
And if the person or their parents for children decline to be involved, the option then is to have a police-led process which is not dependent upon the subject's consent.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. And I think you give some figures in your statement, so for your note, paragraph 55.
Thank you.
That it's about 23 or 24%, or was at the time, where consent is not forthcoming.
Yes, that's right.
There's no need to go into inappropriate operational detail, but can you just give us the thumbnail sketch of what that police-led process would involve, where the subject of the referral or their parents don't give consent?
Yes, so it's very similar to Channel in terms of it being a multi-agency-led, a police-led process, but with multi-agency partners involved, looking at how they could provide support to that individual, but often alongside wider risk management measures. The challenge is that because the individual hasn't consented, what we can't do is work with them on a one-to-one basis on things like mentoring, for instance.
So turning to that, I think for somebody who does give consent, you have intervention providers, yes, who can give that sort of one-to-one mentoring and support.
Yes, that's right.
And they would have, in broad terms, or there would within intervention providers be a range of skill sets. So there may be those who are good at dealing with Islamist extremism, but would you also have some who would be have the requisite skill set to try to deal with fascination with violence?
Yes, we have a broad range of skill sets within our intervention provider cohort. So we have mental health practitioners, we have individuals that have worked for a long period of time in things like special needs schools, so youth workers, social workers, so really broad range of expertise within that cohort.
Including those who are used to dealing with children, it sounds like.
Yes, absolutely.
And so looking against that background just briefly for a moment at AR's case, the potential in my inverted commas missed input in his case, is this right, is that had he been taken on, there would have been a forum in which the local authority, mental health providers, education would be working together with the police under the auspices of PREVENT to look at mitigating the risk of AR being drawn into extreme violence. Would you agree?
Yes, that's right.
And subject to consent, that could have included an intervention provider to work one-to-one, looking at matters in relation to his interest in violence.
Yes, absolutely. And also other diversionary activities, working with community partners.
Thank you. Would you have expected that work to include establishing and dealing, where practicable, with what AR was accessing online?
Yes, so we would often do that through the work of intervention providers. So exploring with the individual the type of content that they'd been viewing online, and helping them to understand what was appropriate and what was inappropriate, and some of the consequences of that action.
Thank you. If we look, please, at CTP NW 30317, we have within the PREVENT case management process overview, I'm just going to wait for it to come up on screen. If we just turn to page 2, please. On one view, one only needs to look at that flow diagram to see the potential complexity of the PREVENT process. At a broad level, do you agree that as a process, it is quite complex?
I think PREVENT is a broad program working with a range of partners, and so therefore we need really clear sort of processes, guidance, and training in place. Yes, this picture of it does look complex, but it is something that everybody that's working within PREVENT is well trained and well schooled in.
Including the understanding of the boundaries between CTCAs and FIMIs, do you think?
They should certainly be aware of that, yeah.
Obviously, it's very easy for me to put something like this on screen and say, looks complicated, doesn't it? And your retort to that is that those within the system understand it, and because it's a broad system, it needs to have aspects of complication, and one understands that. But has consideration been given to whether the complexities of the system are a downside, the multiple stages of different thresholds that you helpfully set out in your statement?
So I don't think we've really considered that. I think we do work hard to try to make things as straightforward as possible. I think the challenge I think that we have, and something that we also encourage, I guess, is that we want to receive a broad range of referrals. So we want to encourage frontline professionals to spot risk. They know these individuals well. We want them to spot changes in behaviour and to refer in. That does mean that we get quite a broad range of types of concern coming through the front door of Prevent. That does mean that we need sort of firm processes in place around then how you determine what's within scope of Prevent, what's outside of the scope of Prevent, I guess.
And the way in which, and I haven't gone through the latter stages because didn't reach them, but the ways in which the threshold test narrows as you go up to that stage of being adopted onto Channel with a variety of different tests. Is that something which is potentially ripe for consideration? Because you say you want to have a broad, open approach to get through the front door. And really what I'm testing with you is whether the narrowing is too much and all of these threshold tests getting tighter and tighter. Is that just a resource issue, or is there some other explanation?
No, I think it's about trying to the people that should be in Prevent should be people that we believe to be susceptible to radicalisation. This is ultimately a counter-terrorism system. It just looks very far upstream of perhaps the terrorism definition. So we do need to narrow. I do believe the threshold at the Prevent Gateway assessment is quite broad, reasonable suspicion.
Thank you. I want to turn briefly to repeat referrals as they were at the time. If we look at your paragraph 47 on page 19 of your statement, you tell us that at the time of AR's referrals, there was no formal Home Office or counter-terrorism policy or guidance on handling repeat referrals. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Is that recognised now to have been a relative weakness in the policy at the time?
Yeah, the frequency of repeat referrals coming into Prevent was not something that I was aware of until 2022 when it came up in relation to another case. We moved quickly at that point then to work with police on a policy that was in draft in 2022 and then implemented in 2023 and then strengthened further in 2025.
Yes. So is that recognised now to have been a relative weakness in the policy at the time, before those improvements were made?
Yeah, so for the Home Office, we didn't have access to that data that would enable us to have spotted that. I do wish I'd asked questions about that earlier.
Thank you. We can come to the detail a little bit later with you and with DAC Evans perhaps tomorrow. But you set out that in 2023, counter-terrorism police introduced a repeat referral policy, and then that was strengthened again, I think, in March 25. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So paragraph 47 for your note. Thank you. At the repeat referrals, as they were happening in 2019, 2020, 2021, at each stage, it was simply a question of applying that test to the repeat referral, whether there are reasonable grounds to suspect that a person is susceptible to becoming a terrorist or supporting terrorism.
Yes, so the thresholds didn't change, but what we were encouraging was CTCOs to look at this to look at the cumulative risk picture.
Yeah. But dealing with how it was at the time, that there was no guidance beyond the threshold test.
Yes.
But you would expect, would you, for a repeat referral, CTCOs to be looking at the whole, to look again at the subject in light of the further information, not just looking at the information as a sort of top-up to see if it makes a difference.
Yes, absolutely. We want them to look at the cumulative risk picture over time. We would want all referrals looked at together.
to turn now to the role of ideology within the prevent process. You set out in your statement, you don't need to have it up, but it's paragraph 93, that there, in 2019 to 2021, there wasn't a distinct category of singular fascination with violence. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And so for that time frame, I don't think we would have statistics gathered by the Home Office for how many fell within that particular description.
No, that's right.
There was, however, the category that you've touched on already of mixed, unstable or unclear ideology. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And what you tell us in paragraph 93 is that the proportion of those who were referred into prevent who had the MUU category continued to increase at around that time.
Yes.
If we could have paragraph 94 on screen, please. It's page 30. Just the bottom third of the page, paragraph 94. As I've understood it, could we just have 94 enlarged? Just the bottom of that page, thank you. Is this right, that there started to be, from the 2021-22 year, things broken down a little bit more so it became more granular? So there was a longer list, I think, published, and at that stage the categories could include school massacre,
Yes.
high counter-terrorism risk but no ideology present, yes?
Yes.
And vulnerability present but no ideology or counter-terrorism risk, yes?
Yes.
But still at that stage, I think not specifically fascination with violence or mass casualty attack. That came later.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. And then at the bottom of this page, you say this: the potential overlap between the longer list of categories, the lack of clear guidance on types of concern at the time, and the scope for different professional judgments means that the size of this cohort cannot be accurately determined from the data we hold from this period. And just in terms of what was being monitored at that stage, should we understand that what you're really driving at there is that because of the categorizations that came in at that time, and because prevent referrals could be judged to fall within one rather than the other, it's very difficult now to look back to that time and ask oneself how many would fall within the current category of fascination with violence or a mass casualty attack.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. We know that AR's first prevent referral was categorized on the tracker as MUU school massacre. And on the new prevent case management tracker, the school massacre has this modern category of fascination with extreme violence or mass casualty attacks where no other ideology is present. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's the current categorization, yes?
Yes.
If we look at paragraph 98, so that's on to the substance of page 31, you say there, whilst the current and previous policy position, underpinned by guidance, communications, training and assessment tools, has permitted sufficient flexibility for those with a fascination with extreme violence to be referred and considered for prevent support, I consider that it is clearer now than it was at the time of AR's referrals that for prevent purposes, an individual showing fascination with extreme violence, apparently without an ideological driver, could be considered for prevent support, yes?
Yes, I think it is clearer now.
And the way in which that is carefully set out in your statement, may I suggest, without, I hope, discourtesy, putting it as a positive, I consider that it is clearer now than it was at the time. Again, the flip side of that is that there was some degree of a problem previously that wasn't sufficiently clear. Would you accept?
I think in 2019 we were still adapting to this type of concern. We were seeing a large increase in mixed, unclear and unstable referrals coming into the PREVENT system. We were trying to understand what the risks, the vulnerabilities and the needs were within that cohort, and adapting at pace to try to do that. The 2019 letter is one way that we tried to do that. Embedding it in guidance from 2020 was another way. But certainly now, having done further research into this cohort, understanding what some of those drivers are, we certainly know more now and are clearer now, and therefore our policy and guidance is also clearer too.
I'll come back to that. Thank you. If we look at paragraph 103, just to explore the scale of the potential problem, bottom of page 32, if we could just have paragraph 103 enlarged, please, Sarah. You say there that data from 2017-2018 highlighted an increase in referrals, which were categorized as MUU. In 2016 to 2017, 696 out of 6,093 PREVENT referrals were classified as MUU. But then you go on to say that for the following accounting period, 2017 to 2018, 1,982 out of 7,318 were classified as MUU, representing an increase of some 185% of the number of MUU referrals. Is that right?
Yes.
That's a very striking statistic. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree.
Can you help us with what the Home Office's assessment is as to why that was occurring at that time? PREVENT wasn't new, and yet you've got a sudden upsurge in MUU referrals.
So I think partly it was us embedding the PREVENT duty across sectors. So whilst PREVENT itself wasn't new, the PREVENT duty came in 2015. That took time for frontline sectors to become confident in, to understand the processes and to trust, I think. So I think we ended up in a space where in this sort of period we're seeing teachers, for instance, saying, I'm really worried about this, the type of behaviours I'm now seeing in this particular individual, and referring in for help, for support, and for help trying to understand the different challenges that they were seeing. So I think it's partly a reflection of embedding the PREVENT duty. I think it's partly a reflection of greater online radicalisation and the way that social media works.
So it's those two things. One shouldn't ascribe it wholly to a change in the threat and the online world, because there may have been greater willingness to report. But you think those two things together are the likely cause of the significant change in percentages?
Yeah, that's what I would subscribe. That's the things that come to my mind.
But then in terms of the scale of the difficulty as how effectively PREVENT was dealing with it at the time, you say that the data also showed that only 12 individuals for whom the referral was categorised as MUU received channel support, yes?
Yes.
And of course, accepting that the overall percentage of those who get taken on by channel may be itself necessarily relatively low, would you agree that that is a staggeringly low figure?
Yes.
And what does it reflect that was going on at that time?
I think it reflected at this particular time uncertainty over how to handle this new type of risk that was being reported into the PREVENT system. We were adapting to a new type of threat and strengthening guidance and training as we went.
But reflects, does it not, not just uncertainty, but that at that time the process wasn't working sufficiently well to push those cases through?
Yes, that's fair.
Because there was a very much lower strike rate for MUU cases getting adopted.
I think at this particular period it was.
That then brings us, doesn't it, to HOM, can we have it on the screen, HOM 4048, the joint letter. Thank you. Was this co-signed by one of your predecessors?
Yes, that's right.
Now, I'm not going to go through the totality of this letter because we've read the majority of it into our transcripts previously, and you'll be familiar with it. I want to ask you about the assessment now of this letter. What is the assessment now as to whether, first of all, this letter was adequate as a means to communicate and embed the change that was necessary?
So I think the letter was to reaffirm existing policy at the time. So it wasn't changing policy. It was reminding frontline practitioners that that these sorts of individuals were prevent relevant. We took a range of steps alongside this letter, including regular communications, awareness sessions. I myself remember hosting all channel panel chairs and talking about some of these risks in November 2019. So it wasn't the letter alone. It was a range of training, guidance and consultation that went alongside it.
And looking back now, did that totality, the letter together with the training that you're speaking about, did that do enough to embed the necessary change, do you think?
So I think it was one step on that process. It was a reflection that this was a new type of risk that we were seeing, encouraging frontline practitioners to take to consider these cases for channel, but then it was supported in 2020 by new channel duty guidance and by CT Police updating the CTCO guidance.
It's a careful answer, but did the totality of the action at this stage, looking back, do enough to embed the necessary change, do you think?
I think it was I think it was an important thing to do. I think now, looking back at the position that we're in now, it was important to get that down into published guidance, I think, as swiftly as possible and supported by training. So yes, I think this is, I'm not someone that wants to do guidance by letter writing. It needs to be set down in sort of informal documentation.
Yeah, that the letter was driving in the right direction, and no doubt the training as well were all positive things. It may be that few, if any, would dispute it. But is it recognised now that there was a problem in the 2019 to 2022 period in that not enough was done to challenge the under-uptake of MUU cases into channel?
I think there was an awful lot done to try to challenge that. So from changing guidance, changing training, and this letter, of course, we've now gone further with some of the policy changes that we've made that means that cases now that meet these sorts of thresholds are almost automatically considered for multi-agency multi-agency information gathering.
I'm not, for my part, suggesting that work was not done, but my question was, is it recognised now that not enough was done in this period to challenge the under-uptake?
I would certainly have liked to have seen more of those cases in Channel.
If we go over the page in the joint letter, please. Thank you. If we can just go over the page again. We see, don't we, in the paragraph, about 4 paragraphs down, this letter may raise the question of whether we're seeking to expand the remit of PREVENT. We are not, yes?
Yes.
Can I seek your assistance on this, reflecting on matters? It may be thought that this letter was trying to ride 2 horses. On the one hand, it was trying to encourage a greater willingness to accept cases through the thresholds where there was no clear ideology, and saying you don't have to have a clearly formed terrorist ideology in order to be accepted onto PREVENT. Would you agree that that's one thing that it was trying to do?
Yes.
But at the same time, in the paragraph that's been flagged with the purple arrow, and indeed in what followed, it was also trying to say, but there is no expansion of the meaning of terrorism, and there's no change in the remit of PREVENT. Would you agree?
No, I think the letter says that there's no expansion to the remit of PREVENT. The PREVENT sort of thresholds and what's relevant for PREVENT has always been very different to what the definition of terrorism is, and what would be of concern to pursue partners.
What's your reflection on the fact that the letter had to do those 2 things at the same time?
So I think that what the letter was saying was that susceptibility to radicalisation or vulnerability to radicalisation can be a really broad thing. It sweeps up a whole range of different attitudes, behaviours, mindsets, and that firm ideology may not always be present. Indeed, if firm ideology is there, PREVENT may even be a little bit too late.
Yeah, because you would then be looking to potentially to more along the pursue lines, an overt activity.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. But was there not at this stage this concern that those looking at a referral into PREVENT from the counter-terrorism stage, so at the deconfliction stage and the FIMU work, would have this focus on an assessment, if it be the case, that there is no counter-terrorism, domestic extremism evidence here, whereas those looking at it as CTCOs for the purposes of assessing whether the case should be open to PREVENT ought still to have been thinking, well, that's one thing, but that doesn't mean that this isn't a PREVENT case. It's still straddling that difficult duality, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the FIMU officers and CTCOs would be assessing to different thresholds, different relevance. The FIMU is solely there to look at whether an investigative lead needs to be opened up on that case, and it's working to pursue thresholds. CTCO should always be working to prevent thresholds, and that's about vulnerability to radicalisation. So therefore, when ideology is not necessarily clear or maybe absent. And
you'll forgive me, I hope, for perhaps simplifying it into layperson's simplistic terms, but isn't there a risk that the FIMU assessment of no counter-terrorism, domestic extremism risk might come across to the CTCOs as we don't need to be worried about this person because there's no terrorism intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, I recognise that some of that terminology is loose and unhelpful. I know we've taken, I know City Police have taken steps to change that, but even with the FIMU making that type of assessment, it is the role of the CTCO to assess prevent relevance, and that's what they should that's what they should be thinking about, and that's what they're trained to do, and what their guidance suggests to them.
Thank you. And appreciating again that whenever an improvement is made, the difficulty is always that some lawyer says, well, that's a weakness of things before the improvement was made. But looking at it with candour, would you accept that different role and those two things, the terrorism risk narrowly defined in tact terms and the wider prevent role, that in that difficult area between the FIMU and the CTCO, there was at the time scope for CTCOs to be overly influenced by a FIMU finding of a lack of counter-terrorism, domestic extremism intelligence?
Yeah, I can see from all of the disclosure I've seen as part of this inquiry that does seem to be concerning. But CTCOs have got the training and the guidance to know the thresholds that they're operating within, and the sorts of behaviours that they are looking for. But yes, I think it is frustrating. Thank you.
I want to turn briefly to the intersection between prevent and mental health and neurodivergence. You tell us in your statement about vulnerability support hubs, and we've explored that in AR's case last week in the evidence. If we look, please, at the most recent guidance in relation to this, or where it's touched upon at least, this is the end-to-end, and we'll come back to this later as well, but this is the result of the end-to-end review of prevent thresholds. HOM 4090, please. And if we go to page 7, just familiarise yourself with the document. I know it's one you'll be familiar with. Just go to page 7, please. And paragraph 16, if that can be expanded, please, Sarah. So in this very recent review, what was being said was that mental ill health was one of the most significant factors which could affect and potentially skew decision-making. Some practitioners and frontline professionals were more likely to dismiss or not consider prevent referrals when mental health concerns were a factor. Practitioners need to be clear that prevent should work with safeguarding and mental health services, as none of them will assess terrorism risk and consider both the harm from the person as well as to the person. It's particularly important that awareness of this is raised in the healthcare sector. Now, for the inquiry, this is obviously an important area, and after the first sentence, a lot of this appears to be directed at the need for healthcare providers to be aware that they shouldn't ignore the need for a prevent referral, in my words, just because the person has a mental health diagnosis or neurodivergence. But what's the significance of the reference to mental ill health was one of the most significant factors which could affect and potentially skew decision-making?
Yeah, so what we found as part of the prevent thresholds review was that too often at both the early decision-making, so the sort of police decision-making stages, or sometimes that channel actually, is that there was sometimes a reference to, well, this is just a mental health risk. If we manage that risk, then there's no wider sort of there is no susceptibility to radicalisation. what we are at pains to point out is that radicalisation risk and vulnerability can go hand in hand. That they need to be managed by potentially sort of both processes. So channel can run alongside wider safeguarding.
And this is bringing things bang up to date, because I think this is within the last month or so. I think this review, yes, and you've helpfully provided it within the disclosure. But we should understand that the fact that within the last month or so, the mental health considerations are being flagged as one of the most significant factors which could affect and potentially skew decision-making, that reflects, does it, that at the Prevent Gateway stage, even now there is a concern that there may be underestimation of the radicalisation risk, because in layperson's terms, things are put down to a mental health diagnosis rather than a focus on risk to others.
Yeah, I think that CTCOs have one of the most difficult jobs looking at the types of different when mental ill health is present, or neurodiversity, sort of picking through that and the support that's required and the impact that has on risk, I think is really significant. But that's why we've got the Vulnerability Support Hub that's been in place. It's now updated to the Clinical Consultancy Service. It's there to provide specialist support and advice to decision makers, whether that's at the police stages or whether that's as part of Channel.
Thank you. So the importance there of the VSH, the Vulnerability Support Hub, will there be rapid thinking about what more may need to change to emphasise this aspect, first sentence of paragraph 16, in training and potentially in policy as well?
Yes, that's right. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, we circulated new news, comms and awareness raising to all frontline practitioners, flagging this as a concern, and being really clear that that Channel can work alongside wider safeguarding concerns, and we're very happy to share that with the inquiry, obviously.
Thank you. I'm sure that would be helpful. When you say to all frontline practitioners, I don't mean to raise this critically of you or of the counter-terrorism police structures, but I just want to understand the reality. Does that go to the police officers who are carrying out the CTCO role, or do you leave that to CTP?
So CT Police will circulate that across CT policing structures, so to regions and to CTCOs. That what we sent out went to local authorities, to schools, safeguarding leads and so on, but also to CT Police regional prevent coordinators. So we would expect them to disseminate that through their region and to talk about it.
Thank you. And you've referred to the mental health diagnosis sometimes running hand in hand with risk to others. And again, I must always be careful when raising this issue not to fall into the trap of treating those with autism as a single group, because things can be very individualized, and you will be familiar with the position in terms of general research about autism and risk. But does that new guidance cover the fact that in some individual cases, those with autism may have, on an individual basis, increased risk factors because of the risk of becoming particularly fascinated with certain types of material and interests?
Yeah, I mean, we have training as well. So training that's delivered to channel panels and intervention providers, that's delivered by the National Autistic Society, that helps that helps people to understand how these types of risks might present differently within this particular cohort, and agreed, that neurodiversity can be a risk factor, but it can also be a protective factor. And that's the challenge with assessing these types of cases.
Thank you. So HOM 4084, please. and page 22 within it. And could we just have the middle box, I think it is, please, highlighted? So I think within the context, this is the training I think that you were referring to, and we can see one place where that is flagged up at paragraph in page 22 in that box. I won't read it out because it speaks for itself. And if we look at page 24, I think we'll see another. So top box, please. So although research indicates there is no empirical evidence to link autism and terrorism, and that's what I was referring to earlier on about the need for care in making generalizations, it's recognized that there are factors that can lead to increased vulnerability and risk. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And Jonathan Hall, independent review of terrorism legislation, staggeringly high numbers of autistic people being referred into PREVENT. So what I wanted, having gone to that, because you're right to point out that that training is there, I think in your statement you refer to this, as I have understood it correctly, that this is going to channel practitioners. Again, is the same type of training, to your knowledge, being provided to counterterrorism police who are at the front line as CTCAs and their sergeants?
So I understand that City Police deliver their own sort of specialist training in this area. Although I'm sure the witnesses that follow me will have more accurate reflection on that.
Thank you. Thank you. That can come down from the screen. I want to turn to a different subject now, which is the Home Office's knowledge of AR as an individual and the involvement, to the extent that there was any, of MI5 in his case. So if we can start with paragraph 108, please, of your statement, which is at page 34. If we have 108, 109, page 34, so HOM 4078. So first of all, you make clear that AR was not individually named to the Home Office prior to the Southport attack. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And in paragraph 109, you indicate that the only data that the Home Office did hold was in relation to a PREVENT referral log, the type of statistics, as I've understood it, that would be maintained for all PREVENT referrals.
Yes, that's right. City Police send each year an annual sort of log at this time, and AR was one line upon many in 2019. Since that point, we have not received those sorts of spreadsheets from City Police.
Thank you. And because that sort of correct but bare statement, AR was not individually named to the Home Office prior to the Southport attack, is the sort of thing that can be misunderstood or misconstrued. Would it be right that there's nothing wrong or surprising or concerning about that, because the Home Office, in the overwhelming majority of cases, just wouldn't get involved in the operational handling of an individual PREVENT referral?
That's right. We have no access to PREVENT referrals or case management, and don't have a need for that access either.
Thank you. And then if we can just go to page 55 of your statement, please, paragraph 188. You were asked by the inquiry to assist us in relation to whether MI5 was involved in AR's case. And if we look at paragraph 189, you refer there to the joint assessment team. And obviously we've heard evidence now from DC Blundell about that team, but it's right, isn't it, that that was a triage team consisting of both counter-terrorism police officers and MI5 officers.
Yes, that's right.
And they provided an integrated means, as you've set out in your statement, of triaging this type of new referral, looking at a range of sources.
Yes.
And we've heard in relation to that, and you've set it out in your paragraph 190, that there was discussion by the JAT of AR, and the information, I think, that resulted from that came in a joint assessment that was explored with DC Blundell. So I'm going to give a reference in a moment, but can I ask you please not to bring up the first page because it has a picture of AR. So could we have page 3 of CTPNW 30146? Thank you. So if we go to the bottom, the JAT assessment, can we just expand that so we capture the text on the right-hand page, on the right-hand side of the page? So joint assessment in reference to internet research and fascination with US school shootings. There's no apparent ideology found, and from reporting any context into how extreme the research conducted in ICT was, it's not known if the school had firewall to inhibit any results being viewed. There seemed to be a common theme with regards weapons, and this has been acted out with his arrest for possession of weapon at school. And then over the page, please. On the 11th of December, AR has various issues and has been previously referred to social services. The intelligence and relevant research at present does not meet any lead or police threshold for investigation under CT/domestic extremism banner. However, consideration now that there is a local authority MASH-led intervention following arrest and previous history at both schools, that preference would be for continuance and recommend dovetail team and channel panel as cited with regards safeguarding and AR vulnerabilities going forward, any new intelligence of CTDE nature for reassessment. So that reflects, does it not, the assessment that was done jointly between counterterrorism police and MI5 at that stage.
Yeah, as I understand it, I think MI5 had not seen this version of the document with the CT police assessment on it.
I was going to come on to that there's an equivalent, sir, for your note. It's HOM 30178, which is the Home Office, I think, equivalent of that, which doesn't have the assessment at the bottom of the page. But the reason why I'm showing you the counterterrorism police one that does is that what we can take from the nature of MI5's involvement was that working with the counterterrorism police, looking at a variety of sources, that was the assessment that they came up with at this stage.
Yes, I mean, MI5 did not think it met their statutory remits for a CT investigation, so at that point, their involvement in this case ends.
Thank you. I was going to come on to that, but that they will have a different test as to whether their statutory duty is engaged, and looking at this assessment, at that stage, it didn't meet it, yes?
Yes.
And there was no MI5 involvement thereafter.
Yeah.
I think after, as you've set out in your statement, after the attack, as one would perhaps expect, MI5 were involved in looking at the position in relation to AR and his activities along with counter-terrorism police, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And again, with that input from both MI5 and the counter-terrorism police, this was a case in which the Merseyside police retained primacy of the investigation, yes?
Yes.
Because in essence, although a careful eye was being kept on the developing picture of what evidence was obtained, that evidence never pointed towards AR having a terrorist motivation in the sense of an ideology in the tact sense that we looked at right at the start of your evidence.
Yes.
Is that a fair summary?
Yes.
Thank you. Can we turn then, please, to the assessment of each of the prevent referrals for AR? Obviously, the learned chair heard evidence about that last week. I'm only going to ask you a relatively targeted number of questions about this. I've asked you already in general terms about that difficult interplay between the FIMU and the CTCO. And from your knowledge of this case, looking at what was recorded at least on the documents, would you agree that there are grounds for some concern about the emphasis on CTDE in what was recorded by the FIMU, but also in terms of, at times, the FIMU appearing to recommend, if not direct, that the prevent referrals could be closed?
Yes, I have seen that as part of the disclosure.
Thank you. And in general terms, would you expect the FIMU to be careful not to overreach beyond their role in the assessment of the intelligence, because what they are looking at is actually narrower in some ways than what the CTCO needs to look at?
Yes.
The first referral was closed without having considered the school internet browsing history, and closed before the product of the review of AR's devices that had been seized in the criminal investigation was complete. Would you agree in general terms that at the Prevent Gateway assessment stage, available opportunities to understand online activity should be taken, where practicable, before making the PGA assessment?
Yes, or certainly before exiting a case.
Yeah. And here, that would have meant ensuring that the school internet browsing history was obtained and carefully considered.
Yes.
The Vulnerability Support Hub, there was an intention to refer to them, which I think you would view as appropriate and good practice here.
Yes.
But it didn't in fact happen. And again, having decided that there should be a referral to the VSH, you would have expected that to be completed and taken into account before the referral was closed.
Yes.
It's a matter for the chair's assessment, but if and to the extent that there were elements of the second and the third referral being treated as a top-up, by which I'm using that as shorthand to suggest that the new information was looked at and the question was, does that add much? I think you're clear that what should have been happening was a holistic assessment of the risks that AR posed as a whole, looking afresh at the whole case.
Yes, absolutely.
You would have expected, would you not, although there was no direct guidance on it at the time, appropriate weight to be given to the fact that there were repeat referrals, so by the end 3 referrals, all from education providers.
Yes.
And to the extent that issues like the internet school browser history not having been checked, the device history not having been checked, and the VSH referral not having happened, would you have expected those to have been picked up by the supervising sergeant who has to endorse any recommendation for closure?
Yes.
Where the decision was, as we know it was, for closure, without going on to information gathering for channel, was there any specific policy guidance at the time on the need for the prevent practitioners to ensure that the most appropriate multi-agency approach was being taken outside of prevent.
So I understand it would have been in CTCO guidance to, if closing at this point, to refer on to other services. That has long been in guidance, but I think that's it.
Can you help us as to whether there's any specific guidance or policy on ensuring that that included the most appropriate police team? Because in AR's case, one of the areas of potential concern is that on the closure of the first referral, while school and mental health services were obviously involved, and the local authority was involved, no police team re-engaged, so the early action or community safety team. Do you know if there was any guidance about that at the time?
I don't know for sure. I mean, I would expect CT Police to be working closely with local policing. I don't know how specific the guidance was at that point in terms of who should be informed and where that case should be referred onto.
Thank you. Putting aside what we now know and trying to avoid the dangers of hindsight, with what was known at the time about AR and what should have been known, by which I'm referring to matters such as the school internet browsing history, was his the type of case that the system as a whole should have been putting through to Channel?
Yes, I mean, I believe this case should have been in Channel. I note the findings as well of the 3 different reviews into this case.
And are you aware of the statement of the relevant official from the local authority? So the reference is LCC 001928, page 13, paragraph 49, in the statement of Ms. Karen Manithi, that the local authorities say that if AR had been referred on to Channel, he would have been accepted.
Yes, I've seen that.
If that had all happened, obviously you can't know whether or not there would have been consent from AR's parents for involvement, but there would this be right, either have been a police-led process if no consent, or there would have been an intervention provider involved if there was consent?
So if there was consent, there'd have been not just an intervention provider, but a full range of multi-agency support that then came into play around that particular individual to try to manage those radicalisation risks and wider vulnerabilities. Had consent not been given at that point, then it would have been a decision for police for CT Police to say whether they thought that this particular case met the threshold for prevents for police-led partnerships. So if there was a concern over his radicalisation risk or violence, we would expect the case to be considered. We would expect them to be considering that case on that basis.
Thank you. And it follows, I think, from the general question that I asked you about the sort of measures that are taken by that process. Would you have expected that to look very carefully at AR's online activity?
Yes, and all the wider vulnerabilities as well.
Thank you. Whether that would have been successful in mitigating the risk, changing AR's behaviour, or alternatively exposing some of what his activity became, particularly in the months and years following, I don't suppose you're able really to say. There's a degree of speculation involved in that. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree. I think it is unknowable. We also don't know the level of, even had his parents consented, the level of engagement he would have, active participation in the process that he went through.
Thank you. I want to turn next, please, to some of the reviews and changes since the attack, but also look at some of the changes that happened between the PREVENT referrals and the attack. So we should start, I think, here with the independent review of PREVENT published by Sir William Shawcross. So just for your note, I'm not going to bring up the full document, but the review is at HOM 4071 and the HMG response at 4070.
Thank you.
If we go back to paragraph 16 at page 6 of your statement, you set out at the bottom of the page that following Sir William's report, there was that change in the PREVENT strategic objectives, which we touched on earlier, to increase the focus on tackling the ideologies that underpin terrorism. And so under A, the first of the PREVENT strategic objectives became tackling the ideological causes of terrorism, so a slightly narrower focus. Understanding, because you touched on it earlier on, why that was the case, is there some tension between the desire to focus on the expanding risk category of mixed, unstable and unclear ideology and the fact that the strategic objectives narrowed down to, say, tackling the ideological causes of terrorism?
Yes, I think so. A lot of the work that was done on the tackling the ideological causes of terrorism was very much about work in communities, work through civil society organisations, and work to disrupt extremist groups at the local level. In terms of that sort of second objective of intervening early, we took Sir William Shawcross's advice to delineate that mixed, unclear and unstable category and to look at that more closely. But we still made clear in all of the guidance and training that was done at the time that ideology was of course an important consideration, but it was by no means the only consideration, and that there are a range of susceptibilities and vulnerabilities and behaviours that could show that somebody was on a pathway to radicalisation.
Thank you. If we go to paragraph 118 of your statement at page 37, we see that between the referrals for AR and the attack, the revised PREVENT duty guidance was issued. HOM 4014, but we don't have to have it on the screen. You've given us a useful summary there, and if we look at 118D, you say that amongst the changes was emphasising that as PREVENT is a counter-terrorism capability, the presence or possible presence of any terrorist or terrorism-linked ideology will be an important consideration for frontline professionals in deciding whether to make a referral to PREVENT, whilst recognising that there may be times where the precise ideological driver is not clear, that it is better to receive referrals than turn out not to be of concern than missing someone who genuinely needs support. So same issue really is in relation to the changes to the strategic objectives. Was there some risk that this renewed emphasis or changed emphasis in the PREVENT duty guidance was acting somewhat against what had tried to be achieved by the joint letter?
Yeah, I can see that it doesn't feel very clear. In terms of both the PREVENT duty guidance as a sort of whole document and the training that went alongside it, we were very clear that sometimes you won't, with the referrals that we deal with, sometimes ideology won't be clear until much further down the line, or it may not become present at all. But it was about trying to spot people early, and that was often before they hit that trajectory towards a clear ideology. So yes, it is. It is challenging to set it out in
There's still a tension there, is there not?
Yes, it does. It certainly is a tension, and that is something that we've also heard from frontline practitioners. So we have to work quite hard to clarify that in training, in guidance, and in all of the awareness-raising work that we do.
Thank you. One of the other changes that you deal with in helpful detail in your statement is the new prevent assessment framework. So if we just have on screen, please, paragraph 120 of your statement at page 38. There's a whole section in your statement on this. I just want to look at some of the key points. So this was rolled out across the country to the regions in September 2024, and as you've set out, it was bringing in learning from both the murder of Sir David Amess and the Forbury Gardens attack, of course also involving our learned chair. And this is now, I think, the framework that will be used by the CTCO from the PGA stage and thereafter to assess suitability for channel. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And taking it at a high level, does it seek to give greater consistency by effectively directing the CTCO to have regard to a number of relevant considerations that are set out on the form, so that the CTCO has to apply their mind directly to each of them?
Yes, that's right. It's a tool to help structured professional judgment.
And so factors such as the existence of mental health and complex needs, social isolation, I think are directly on the form or in the framework that they have to address that as an issue.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. And the indicators of concern, I think, are set out within that. And would it be fair to say that if one was looking at AR's case with the PAF in front of one, AR would have met a substantial number of the indicators of concern?
I haven't looked across at, I haven't mapped the prevent assessment framework onto AR's case, but yes, certainly knowing what the prevent assessment framework contains and some of the disclosure that we've seen as part of this inquiry, then yes, it feels clear that it would have made its way into channel. Thank you.
So solely for your note, and not pleased to have on screen, the reference is CTPHQ 30127 for the currently used framework.
Thank you.
Could I ask you, in relation to this, you say that it's used for the stages from the Prevent Gateway assessment. Is it actually the framework that needs to be used to make the PGA?
Yes, absolutely. So it replaces both the DIF and the vulnerability assessment framework. So this, the prevent assessment framework takes the individual, each referral all the way through the process from initial referral in to exit from channel further down the line. So
the PAF bites at an early stage, at the stage where the CTCO makes the decision as to whether it should go forward to information gathering.
Yes, that's right.
I follow, thank you. And then if we could have on screen, please, paragraph 157 of your statement at page 47. There's new policy jointly agreed by the Home Office to strengthen consistency of decision-making on referrals where a fascination with extreme violence has been identified. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. So the reference for this, but we may pick up the detail of this with DAC Evans tomorrow in her evidence, is CTP NW 4016. Can you just confirm for today's purposes that one of the features of that is that if the reason for the referral is fascination with extreme violence, there needs to be a greater degree of scrutiny in the supervision stage, with a more senior officer having to approve any closure of the referral?
Yes, that's right.
And related to this, in paragraph 158, you say that measures were introduced to strengthen assurance on repeat referrals. So we've looked at strengthening measures for violence-fascinated individuals. Now on repeat referrals, there's also been work done there, is that right?
Yes, that's right. And both policies put a strong presumption that these cases should make it through the Prevent Gateway assessment and into multi-agency information gathering.
Thank you. So if we can just have on screen, please, first of all, HOM 30100. Date of this is the 13th of March of this year. And if we go over the page, please, and over the page again, I think we see that this is a letter that's been sent out by you, is that right? I'm not going to go through it because of wanting to make progress with your evidence. I'm not going to go through the detail of this, but is this the means by which some of the key messages were delivered by you in relation to these strengthened changes in these two areas?
Yes, that's right.
And the multiple referrals, perhaps we should just look at briefly, CTPNW 4067. Again, we can pick up the detail with others. And if we go, please, to page 8. We see there at the top of the page, we can have the top half of the page enlarged, please. Enhanced oversight for multiple referral cases. And do we see there that a police inspector needs to have oversight? So it needs to be informed of all multiple referral cases as soon as they're identified, must review the referrals, and also states at the bottom, all multiple referral cases that have not been referred to Channel or PLP must be passed to the Prevent Inspector for plea closure review. So there's a sort of, my words, not the words of this policy, but an assumption in favour that it's going to go through. And if it's not, there now needs to be a more senior officer who checks in what's called a pre-closure review that it is appropriate to be closed, even though it's a multiple referral case.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. In terms of reports following the dreadful attack, there was there not the Prevent Learning Review?
Yes.
And your directorate, I think, would have been involved in commissioning that.
Yes, that's right.
We should note, in fairness to all concerned, that if we have paragraph 152 of your statement, page 46, please. Top of the page, paragraph 152. Just when we consider, I'm not going to go through it paragraph by paragraph, but when we consider the Prevent Learning Review, first of all, you felt that it was important that a swift review was undertaken, so it was done at reasonable speed. Would you agree?
Yes, that's right.
And secondly, and perhaps more significantly, this, that because it was done while the criminal process was still ongoing, none of those who were involved, whether as CTCOs or as the supervising sergeants, could be interviewed. It was effectively a desktop review.
Yes, that's right.
So there was not the opportunity to scrutinise the rationale by asking questions in relation to that.
That's right.
And equally, one should read that review as a matter of fairness, recognising that the officers concerned had not had the opportunity to give their explanations for it and explain, for example, why some things were recorded in writing.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. So the references for that are CTPHQ 4055 for a version of the review, but obviously you're well familiar with it.
Thank you very much.
We look at paragraph 153. You say the key findings from the review indicated that overall the reviewer considered there to have been a high level of compliance by the prevent officers with process timescales, assessment completion and adherence to policy that was in place at the time. However, although processes and policies were largely followed correctly, the reviewer identified several subjective decision points where risk could have been assessed differently, which may have led to the provision of prevent support. Yes?
Yes.
Are those findings that the Home Office and the Home Secretary accept?
Yes.
Thank you. If we look at page 162, you set out there that to address, sorry, it's page 48. So to address the areas identified in the Prevent Learning Review, the Home Secretary, previous Home Secretary it was, of course, on the 17th of December, outlined reforms to further strengthen Prevent. A, conducting an end-to-end review of Prevent thresholds, yes?
Yes.
And that's the document that I took you to in relation to that reference of mental health. Do you, yes?
Yes, that's right.
And then on B, C, and D, where B is broadening the interventions available to people supported by channel, C is undertaking a strategic policy review to identify and deliver improvements in how individuals referred to into Prevent who are neurodivergent or suffer from mental ill health are supported and managed. And D is strengthening the Home Office's approach to the monitoring and oversight of referrals that do not meet Prevent thresholds by launching a pilot to test new approaches. What you say in relation to those, I think other than A, where the report has come in, is work is currently underway to implement all of the above. Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, that's quite a broad catch-all. Work is currently underway to implement all of the above. Can you just give us, first of all, a broad understanding of where that has reached?
Yes, absolutely. So the Prevent threshold review has been completed. I'm currently working to get that published on gov.uk to make it really transparent. On broadening interventions available, we have now rolled out cyber interventions to individuals on channel. So this helps people to understand what the consequences of some of the content that they're viewing online. And we have also extended practical mentoring to channel subjects. So that helps people that don't have a strong ideology to help them overcome some of the different vulnerabilities and risks we might see as part of that. On the strategic policy review into mental health and neurodivergence, we've completed the first stage of that and now have 2 other phases to go, but are already starting to implement some of the recommendations from that. And then on the final one, we have pilots in place in 9 different local authority regions at the moment, and we have done since March, which is testing those cases that don't meet the threshold for Prevent. We are testing different approaches for formalising handovers from Prevent into wider sort of statutory partners, including local policing, That has largely involved having almost mini channel panels that are having a multi-agency discussion around these cases and then determining who the lead professional should be and what support should be provided in those cases. Those pilots started in the spring. They will run to the end of this financial year, and we'll identify learning from that and determine whether this is something that we need to roll out more widely.
Thank you. I think you've been put on notice of the likelihood that I, through the chair, might request this. Can I ask that you provide a formal written update to the inquiry by the end of the calendar month of November in relation to the progress that's been made in each of those areas and to include the timescales for completion of those that are still underway. Could I please ask that it includes, for example, in relation to the pilots, any learning and early lessons that are coming out of it, even though it is partway through? And with apologies for the long list, could I please ask that you ensure that by whatever way is most convenient to you and those working with you, that you make clear in the written update anything that is so sensitive that it should only be seen by the inquiry team, that which can be shared with the core participants but shouldn't be published, and what can be published.
Yeah, that we can do. By then, we'll also have the latest annual statistics for Prevent this year, so we'll also share the details of that, and you'll be able to see how some of these policies have been implemented and the impact on the ground.
Thank you. And then paragraph 166 of your statement, you set out there Lord Anderson's publication of his report, Lessons for Prevent. And again, for reasons you'll understand, that's something which is very familiar to the chair. You set out 5 themes there. Prevent referrals should be considered for people that have had no fixed ideology but do present a fascination with extreme violence or mass casualty attacks. Prevent could function better if it was connected to a broader safeguarding and violence protection system. Prevent should rapidly adapt to the online world where so much radicalization takes place. Public transparency about the structure, systems and statistics of Prevent should be the default, and information sharing and engagement should be improved. Again, in relation to those themes and the recommendations, you've not had long with that as a report. Can you just give us the headlines of the position that's been reached in taking action in relation to them?
Yes, absolutely. So we have started implementing many of these recommendations already. So some of the policy changes that we've made to Prevent in terms of fascination with extreme violence is aimed at addressing we have pilots underway looking at how we can better identify people online who are showing Prevent-related behaviours, and we are rolling out additional additional means of opening Prevent up to the public, to critics and journalists, so that they have better understanding of how it works and to increase that transparency. I think it is fair to say that the area that we're really focused on at the moment and where we're still working out a way forward is on recommendation B, which there is lots of cross-government work underway at the moment to try to identify how Prevent connects into that broader safeguarding and violence prevention system. It's a very important recommendation and an equally challenging one.
Yeah, and that I think has got, as you've indicated, some cross-Whitehall implications. Would that be right?
That's certainly right.
And you know that I'm going to ask in relation to that if your end of November update could cover those grounds to those areas as well.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So that brings us to nearly 1 o'clock, and I'm conscious we haven't had a mid-morning break. I'm changing to a different topic now. I wonder if we could break for lunch, but perhaps have a slightly shorter break of perhaps 40 minutes.
Certainly. We'll sit again at 22.